I feel this way. Like, I try to have this knowledge when I watch a football game. Everybody thinks when they leave a close game that their team should have won. Everyone thinks that. If that field goal goes through, Browns fans are walking to the car going, we should have won that game. We had that game. I can't believe we didn't win that game. And Niner fans today are like, I can't believe we didn't win that game. We should have won that game. So we should have won is, I think, it's a biased statement by nature.
Of course.
The Cowboys cannot say last week we should have won. It doesn't count when you get blown off the field. But in close games, everybody always thinks we should have won. So keep that in mind. However, I do think it's another level when we get games like this where I feel there were at minimum 4 plays that if they simply are executed in a normal way, the 49ers win. If Brandon Ayuk catches the bomb from Brock Purdy in the first half, I think the Niners win. If either of those calls, which in my view were called incorrectly, difficult calls, yes, but if called correctly, the fumble right before the half and the Tashawn Gibson personal foul that they called right there at the end that would have created 4th and 10, that along with obviously the Moody kick itself. If any one of those 4 plays are executed in what I would consider a typical fashion, the 49ers win. But none of them were. And you can also fall back on football often goes to the team that beats the other one up inside at the line of scrimmage. And the Browns definitely won that battle.
Yeah.
There's no question.
And if you rank those 4 plays in terms of which one is the most likely one to go your way, the field goal kick, to me, is the most likely one that should have gone your way and didn't. The Brandon Ayuk catch would be number 2 because he's open and he gets 2 hands on the football, and that's a big play, and he should have had that one. The fumble that was called an incomplete pass that might have been a fumble, that one to me is closer to 50-50 based on the way the rule reads, and I hate that underhand shovel, and all these quarterbacks are now doing it where you're about to get sacked and you just try to chuck it because you want to avoid the sack, and that's what this was. And by the letter of the law, he might have had control of the ball. That's 50-50. They called it incomplete, and they didn't have enough to overturn that one. And the helmet-to-helmet one, to me, is just a byproduct of where we are in 2023, where like it or don't like it, that's going to get called that way most of the time.
Yeah, agreed. Again, if I were on the field, I'd have thrown the flag. What I would wish for in that particular case is, and I know this makes people roll their eyes, I wish that play was reviewable. And the reason I wish it was reviewable is because it's a fact or fiction play. There's no judgment involved there. Did he come in contact with the head or neck? And the answer was no. And they review these every time in college football because of the targeting rule there.
Yeah.
So it's very, very doable.
But they don't always get it right in college either.
Well, then nobody always gets anything right. But at least you could look at that one and be like, the 2 shoulders connected with one another, and that was it. I wish it were reviewable. It's not. So I'm not really blaming the refs on that one because I'd have called it the exact same way. But sure, it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. But to my point about no matter who you root for, you're going to come out with shoulda and coulda and woulda. You're going to do all of those things. We got Pierce Evans on our YouTube feed that goes, why don't you talk about how the Browns got screwed out of 7 points? How? I don't even know what you're talking about. Something about a holding call and David Njoku. Yeah, it was holding. So, but that's always the view of a fan. So I'm not going to apologize for the way that I see it because I'm a 49er fan. And I see it through the lens of that was a fumble and that was not a personal foul. And the kicker usually makes that. And Brandon Ayuk usually catches that ball. Nobody's arguing who's the more talented team here, but the Browns played better.
Yeah.
Got a few breaks, won the game. Not taking anything away from them at all.
And I can look at every single penalty that was called. 25 of them were accepted in totality. And if you looked at just the plays where there were flags thrown and penalties accepted, there were too many flags thrown and there were too many penalties accepted. And that's on both sides. And you can look at any individual play and see it how you want to see it. Ultimately, that game did not come down, in my opinion, to officials' calls on a fumble or an incomplete pass or a hit that may or may not have been legal or illegal. It came down to the fact that their defense dominated your offense to the point where you could not move the ball.
Well, and they could have overcome it. And in fact,
they did.
I would argue they did. They did, right. Like, I do think this. Man, are we having a different sounding nation, football-wise, if Brock Purdy had gone 3 and out on the 49ers' last possession. And for a second, it looked like that was going to happen, didn't it? Right? First down, incomplete. Second down, incomplete. It was 3rd and 10 in the blink of an eye. And believe me, I'm looking up at these numbers. I'm like, he's got like 80 yards passing, and it's 3rd and 10.
Yep.
And they're not going to get a first down, and this is going to get ugly. This is going to be as bad of a scenario as Brock could have imagined. And then the 49ers get a penalty, which it was. It absolutely was defensive holding on Jawan Jennings. There's a big old fistful of jersey. So that was a correct call. And then they got their feet underneath them, started moving the ball. I think it's very important for Brock Purdy that even though the 49ers lost, he did get them into field goal range for the game-winning kick. That was the assignment that sort of makes the rest of the game, I don't want to say okay, it was a bad game for him, but it does, I think, calm a 49er fan's feeling about Brock Purdy a little bit.
Sure, the fact that he had more than 100 yards passing, certainly, because the team, up until that last drive, they had 1 yard of offense in the second half, and we're dealing with a minute 40 to go in the game, and laminated play sheet, and your MVP candidate, he's the MVP front runner. Well, he doesn't even have 100 yards passing, and your team has 1 yard of total offense. So not that it completely torpedoed his MVP case in one morning or one afternoon in Cleveland, but that was not an MVP-like performance. And yet he did lead him down the field. He did get him into field goal range, and he set his kicker up in a spot where he should make the kick. So he doesn't get actual points for that because the kick was missed.
Right.
But he gets style points for getting that done.
Yeah, he went on the drive that they needed to go on.